Hello and welcome to another read with me. I am Isabel, and I am here to continue to read with you this amazing book, How to Spend Your Money, The Art of Spending Your Money by Morgan Housel. And it's one of those books that doesn't judge you for your financial decisions. It doesn't give you any type of framework on how you should. That's why it's called an art. Everybody has their own unique style. And I really value the way this book is laid out. I mean, today has been a very long day for me. I'm physically not all there, and mentally, I'm like at 30%. However, I do believe that there's certain things in your life, your daily life, that energize you, that can energize you, like going on a good walk, having a really good cup of coffee, having a blueberry smoothie, you know, reading a book, especially when it aligns with your rhythm and where you're going mindset wise. So if you're wondering ever, what can I do other than lay on the couch and watch a movie or a show or whatever, what else can I do to recharge myself or feed myself in a way that doesn't, take away? That's how I feel. I feel like this adds to my energy some way, somehow. Maybe because I'm fed by knowledge, I'm fed by information, I'm fed by the right information. So I am, I encourage you, I invite you to join me in this book and reading this book because it's really good. It's one of my favorite books, and Morgan Housel has, the top five authors. He's definitely one of them. So let's get started, shall we? This is chapter 7, day 8. In total, we're going to do about 20 days. So we're going to be really taking this book and making it happen. All right. The rich and the wealthy. Being controlled by money is a hidden form of debt. And like all debt, it will eventually be repaid plus interest. And it's interesting that we're going into this because yesterday I saw a post by Layla Hermosi about working with her spouse, Alex, and they choose to be very transparent with each other. So let's say you have an idea or you have a thought, you have a disagreement, or maybe you agree with something, you just say it. You in the moment, you don't just keep it and hold it and let it time to, build. I believe that when you choose to allow things to build up, that's a form of debt because how it's kind of saying plus interest in that sense, it's saying, I might not choose to tell you how I feel right now, but I'm just going to feel this type of way. And it's okay to feel some type of way. However, the faster that you can have that conversation and choose to have a conversation with that person that you believe is worthy of that conversation, okay, that's another thing on its own, then that interest goes down. And that interest can look like, you know, um, hurt inside. Maybe you start, maybe it comes out in different ways, that anger, that resentment, that frustration, all these different things that are not good for the soul, the body, the mind, you know. That's what I feel a plus interest type of thing is when we choose not to talk about it or discuss it or just all in all just go for it. So I'm glad that I got to see that post, and I think we're going to dive into something that it is in alignment with this. So let's get on with it. Okay, let me make a distinction between rich and wealthy. The definitions are my own, but I've always found them helpful. If you are rich, you have money in the bank that allows you to buy the stuff that you want. If you are wealthy, you have a level of control over what the money does to your personality, your freedom, your desires, ambitions, morals, friendships, and mental health. Weren't we just talking about this? I love when that happens, when everything aligns and it just flows with each other because I haven't read this chapter at all. All right. When figuring out how to spend money in a way that will make you happy, I have found that it's not so much about how much money you have or how much you spend. The trick is whether you are or aspire to be this definition of rich or wealthy. Money is a powerful tool capable of shaping people's lives in extraordinary ways. That statement can either be an inspiration or a curse, because here's the truth. If you don't figure out how to use money correctly, it will use you. It will control you. It will make you its prisoner, showing no mercy and offering no sympathy. Some people are so controlled by money that they think they're chasing money to live a better life, but in fact, the money always plays them like a marionette doll, pulling the strings and demanding that they chase things they may not like and aspire to things they don't even understand. If I asked, is it a good thing to be obsessed with drugs or alcohol or fame or power? You would say, of course not. Obsession with almost anything can turn into a liability because it begins to control you. What you intended to what you intended to be a helpful tool becomes a controlling dictator, a dangerous obsession with money. Particularly spending money can creep into your life unnoticed. The allure of what money can do for you is so enchanting. The idea that you will be happier if you just had more money to spend is so powerful and so universal that people have a hard time distinguishing noble ambition from dangerous obsession. Being controlled by money can apply to everyone at any and every income level. But you see its power under a magnifying glass among the very rich, who are blessed with lots of money, but often cursed by the control of it has on their lives. It can be a shocking thing to witness, throwing you off guard when you realize that someone who has so much money has lost so much control of their life. Ernest Hemingway said fellow author F. Scott Fitzgerald had a romantic awe of the rich. He thought they were a special glamorous race, and when he found they weren't, it wrecked him as much as any other thing that wrecked him. Let me share a story of one of the richest families in human history who were so obsessed with spending money that it led to a life I find more pitiful and enviable. This is going to be a good one because I see the name and I think a lot of people can relate to this. Okay, or not relate, but they know what this is. Okay. Reginald Claypool Vanderbilt was born into a family fractured by bitter rivalries, fragile egos, and insurmountable expectations. Everything went downhill from there. When Reggie's great grandfather, Cornelius, I love that name, Cornelius Commodore Vanderbilt died in 1977, the New York Daily Tribune published an editorial predicting the legacy of the world's richest man. The Vanderbilt case is an impressive lesson in only the folly of attempting to found a family upon no better basis than the possession of money. The ruling idea of the old commander's latter years was to amass such a huge fortune which should stand for generations and generations and generations as a monument to the name of the Vanderbilts, and make the head of the house a permanent power in American society. There's no country in the world where fortunes are made so quickly, and none in which inherited money has done so little for its possessors. The Vanderbilt money is certainly bringing no happiness and no greatness to its present claimants. And we have little doubt that in the course of a few years, it will go the way of most American fortunes. A multitude of heirs will have the spending of it, and it will be absorbed in the vast circulating system of the country. That's what the New York Daily Tribune published about them. It was a brutal outlook and underestimated what was to come. Adjusted for inflation, Cornelius Vanderbilt left his heirs something like 300 billion. He allegedly had more money than the US Treasury. I believe it. Within 60 years, almost nothing was left. 60 years? Unbelievable. The wealth went to three generations whose guiding life purpose was to see who could spend it the fastest and most recklessly. Early heirs felt some duty to run the family business. Over time, the family business became insecurity and resentment. In 1875, an OP said socialites devoted themselves to pleasures regardless of expense. A Vanderbilt quipped that actually they devote themselves to expense regardless of pleasure. The frank admission was really the heart of it. It was a game that couldn't be won, so everyone lost. Being controlled by money is a hidden form of debt, and like all debt, it will eventually be repaid at significant cost. Reggie was one of the last Vanderbilt heirs to have significant wealth inherited, and on his 21st birthday, he inherited 12.5 million, or about 350 million in today's dollars. Family biographer Arthur Vanderbilt writes, self-indulgent, lazy, lackadaisical Reggie had absolutely no sense of responsibility or purpose other than to keep himself from being bored. He was never employed, never did a lick of work. Somewhat at a loss when asked his occupation, he usually responded, gentleman. The only way Reggie could distinguish himself was to live the life of a rich playboy, and this he did with dedication and consummate skill. Reggie's two great loves were liquor and gambling. The first left him dead at the age of 45 with cirrhosis so severe the blood flow from his liver was choked off and pushed up to his esophagus, where veins abruptly ruptured and left him choking in a pool of blood as his family watched in horror. The latter left him broke. After debts were repaid, Reggie's will was nearly irrelevant. Since he had nowhere near the amount of money promised to his heirs, the Vanderbilts had the biggest homes, the most glorious furnishings, the most extravagant parties, and the most exquisite travel. But so much of it was purchased as a monument to their wealth, virtually worshiping it like a deity, rather than using it as a tool that could improve their lives. The result was something between absurdity and tragedy. While Reggie's life was spinning out of control, another Vanderbilt heir, George Washington Vanderbilt, spent 6 years building the 135,000 square foot Biltmore House with 40 master bedrooms and a full-time staff of nearly 400. He allegedly spent little time there because it felt more like a commercial building than a cozy home. It was utterly unaddressed to any possible arrangement of life. As one friend put it, the house nevertheless cost so much to maintain it, It nearly ruined Vanderbilt. That's terrible. 90% of the land was sold off to pay tax debts. What? And the house was turned into a tourist attraction. So stupid. Then there were family rivalries over who could build the biggest yacht, buy the most expensive art, marry the bluest blood. The rivalry, not the material pleasure, was the point, which ensured happiness was always out of reach. There were arranged marriages, endless bitter disputes over inheritance, and almost never a chance for their heirs to find their own way or be known as anything other than a trust funder. Just before he died in 1920, William Vanderbilt said, "My life was never destined to be quite happy. Inherited wealth is a real handicap to happiness. It is a death to ambition, as canine is to morality." As cocaine, sorry, not canine. It is a death to ambition as cocaine is to morality. At almost every turn, money tore the family apart, leading to a level of dysfunction and insecurity you would not wish upon your enemies. Dig into the lives of Vanderbilt heirs, history's luckiest members of the Lucky Sperm Club, and not many of you would want to swap lives. If you look at this enormous wealth that tore the family apart and you begin to ask, what's the point? The point, as the New York Daily Times Tribune realized early on, was not to live a great life. It was not to use their money as a tool to become happier, more content, more enriched, and more satisfied. The point was to be rich and to spend it, to be valued upon no better basis than the possession of money. Rather than using money to build a life, their life, around money, rather than an asset, an inheritance functioned as an surmountable lifestyle debt, passed to the next generation until there was mercifully nothing left. It's hard to have sympathy for billionaire heirs. But the important part here is diagnosing the problem because it's one of the afflicts many ordinary people. The Vanderbilts are one of the clearest examples of money controlling a person rather than being used as a tool to improve their life. They lived to serve their money. Ugh, that's terrible. They lived to serve their money rather than the other way around. Listen, let me just interject here because this is sad, you know? It's like money can be used as a tool, okay? Just like I don't know, heroin can also be used as a tool. Sometimes you need heroin to clean in the medical world, or alcohol, you need to clean uh, a cut or something. But when you use it to abuse it, I mean, they lived to serve their money, or their addiction or their whatever it is, their fix. I, uh, that's so sad. It's not an isolated example. Entrepreneur David Siegel once built a 90,000 square foot house in Florida. When asked why he was building such a big house, he thought about it for a moment. He replied, "Because I can." To teach their own, but he said nothing about the memories it would enhance or the pleasure it would bring. He just said, "Because I can." That to me smells like somebody whose money has complete control over their personality. So let's go back to the tool. If someone asked why you're using a screwdriver, you would not say because I can. You would say, oh, because it helps me hang these pictures on the wall and put this furniture together. The master versus tool framework is so powerful once you look for it. Harvey Firestone, the late tire tycoon, seemed to fall for this same trap. To his credit, he was aware of the silly game his money made him play. He wrote in his 1926 memoir, Why is this? Why is it that a man, just as soon as he gets enough money, builds a house much bigger than he needs? Why is that? Why build a house much bigger than you need? I have a house in Akron many times larger than I have the least use for. I have another house in Miami Beach, which is also much larger than I need. I suppose that before I die, I shall buy or build other houses, which also will be larger than I need. I do not know why I do it. The houses are only a burden, but I have done it. And all my friends who have acquired wealth have big houses. Even so, you know, onosen, I don't even know this word. Even as a man like Henry Ford has a much bigger house in Dearborn than he really cares about, and I wonder why it is. Perhaps it's some foolish survival of the ancient feudal idea when a big house is meant a strong house in which one might keep a small army for protection. In a few cases, a big house is built just for advertisement that one is rich. Sometimes a big house is just built so that great entertainments may be given. But in most cases, and especially with men who have earned their own money, the house is just built. And when it is done, no one quite knows why it was ever even started. So stupid. The houses are only a burden, and I do not know. And I do not know why I do it. I wonder why it is. I admire his honesty, but the admission is astounding. Reggie Vanderbilt's grandson, broadcast journalist Anderson Cooper, was one of the first Vanderbilt heirs who was never promised dynastic wealth. It may have been a blessing. He's not only the most successful Vanderbilt heir in over 100 years, but appears to be the happiest. Cooper once said of inheritance, I think it's an initiative sucker. I think it's a curse from the time I was growing up. If I felt like there was some pot of gold waiting for me, I don't know if I would have ever been so motivated. Free from the inherited obsession with money, he was allowed to find his passion and appreciate the value of a dollar. It's like he was the first in his family to actually cut the strings of the marionette doll, refusing to let money control over who he was or the way that he lived his life. Back to the difference between rich and the wealthy. What I find fascinating are the stories like the Vanderbilts. They were the richest people on earth, but by definition, some of the least wealthy. Money to them was less of an asset and more of a social and mental liability, indebting them to a status chasing life that left most of them seemingly miserable. No matter how much money you make, anyone can get caught in a trap. And my gosh, hope you avoid it. If you want an example of someone I'd call wealthy, have a look at Chuck Feeney. Feeney, I love that name, Feeney, who co-founded Duty Free Stores, died in 2023. The well-known of Feeney's story is that he was the most frugal billionaire to ever live. He gave away 99.99% of his 8 billion fortune years before he died. He and his wife kept 2 million, lived in a small apartment, flew coach, and lived a quiet life. The less well-known part of Feeney's story is that once he gave the high life an honest try. The Washington Post wrote of his life in the 1980s when he was newly rich. He had a luxury apartment in New York, London, and Paris, and posh getaways in Aspen in the French Riviera. He hobnobbed with the other mega rich on yachts and private jets. If he wanted it, he could afford it. He quickly realized that it wasn't for him. Society told him He should want those things, but it wasn't what actually made him happy. Giving money away was. I'm happy when what I'm doing is helping people, and unhappy when what I'm doing isn't helping people. I love that. Or more specifically, I love that he loved that. He didn't follow a typical path or what other people told him to like or how to live. He didn't worship his money and let it dictate how he should live or control who he was or capture him to a status chasing life. He found what made him happy and used his enormous wealth as a tool to become even more happier. He may have looked frugal, but he was actually the freest, most independent person you'll ever hear of. He was wealthy. Feeney is someone I consider a role model, not because of how much he made or the lifestyle he lived, but because he was so clearly in control of the money he had, never letting it become the master of his life. If the Vanderbilts were a family built upon no better basis than the possession of money, Feeney was the opposite. He was a man built upon morals and individuality who just happened to have a ton of money. Rather than a monument to be glorified, the money he used was a tool that was used no differently than how a mechanic uses a wrench. Everyone at every income level can learn from that. My friend David Perel once wrote, "The people I admire most have a way of escaping the bubble of culture, sometimes via religion, sometimes via old books, sometimes via time and nature. Without such an escape, propaganda wins. You stop thinking for yourself. Modern delusions grow into an all-consuming mind virus." That's such a big part of the rich versus wealthy idea. To be happy, you have to be your own self. If you blindly accept money's ability to persuade you, your personality, and how it dictates how you spend your life, it will quickly take control. When putting this theory to use in my own non-trust funder, non-billionaire tycoon life, I keep three things in mind. There's this idea in relationships that you can't be happy with a partner if you can't be happy without them. It's the same for spending the money. Let me read that one more time. There's this idea in relationships that you can't be happy with a partner if you can't be happy without them. That's the same thing with money. Recall the fascinating Recall the fascinating finding the behavioral finance that having more money is more likely to make you happy if you were already happy before you had more money. And on the flip side of that, beyond a basic level of necessity, it's hard for more money to make you happy if you're not already happy with who you are, your morals, your values, your personality, your friendships, who you seek attention and admiration from. You must control these things, regardless of how much money you have, in order to have a decent life. The danger is assuming that more money will improve. That's when the money you have, or even just your ambitions for more, take control over your life. If you're already satisfied with who you are, you naturally view money as a tool to be used to make things better. And that's when you become wealthy. Separate what you like from what you want. They can be very different things. Many people like cigarettes because they feel good, but few actually want them. I like aimlessly scrolling through social media, but I don't necessarily want to do it. These things are just addictive and they control the person rather than becoming tools to help enhance the person's life. What I want to buy are things that I both like and don't drive me crazy when I can't have them all the time. The occasional fancy meal, an annual big family vacation, nice clothes every once in a while. If for whatever reason I had to drop these things from spending, it might sting a little, but my family and I would still be fine. I enjoy these things, but I don't obsess over them. They don't control me. I think of them. I think then and only then do you know that money is being used as a tool to help you rather than a master to obey. There's a Stoic saying, you are unlikely to have a good and meaningful life unless you can overcome your insatiability. 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 You're unlikely to have a good, meaningful life unless you can overcome your insatiability, which insatiability means impossible to satisfy. Mm, yeah. Don't be proud, and this is number three. Don't be proud of your consumption. Be proud of what you've built. I like this one. The family you've built, the friends you've found, the memories you have, the wisdom you've accumulated. There are many times when the stuff you buy can help produce memories and foster quality time with friends and family, but the people, not the stuff, are what actually is meaningful. Warren Buffett once noted that he has very rich friends who have everything, the big homes, private planes, even hospital wings named after them. But the truth is that nobody in the world loves them, he said. If you get to an age in life and nobody thinks well of you, I don't care how big your bank account is, your life is a disaster. You've become rich, but wealth remains elusive. Ooh. Yeah, I agree. I agree with every part of this chapter so much. And that was the end, by the way. Um, that was really exciting to hear because, I mean, I never have been so drawn to money to the degree that I feel like I just want to spend it. I'm lucky in that sense that I had and still have to work for whatever I want. And I believe that's almost like a privilege at this point because there's a difference of choosing to work for your money in a smart way or choosing to work for your money in a, you know, broken way. So that's why I feel education is so important. And maybe the Vanderbilts, how everything ended up going with them. It's sad, yes, very sad. However, it's still happening today. It's still happening in many people's life. And some people don't even have the wealth of the Vanderbilt or the money. It's not wealth. They don't have the money of that. And, they're working towards it to hopefully build a better life to eventually have that. That's great, just as long as it's fulfilling a certain level of humanity. You know what I mean? I'm not saying to give away your money. I'm not saying to, open up a hospital. I don't care about all that. All I care about is that the person is going to be a great asset to themselves and not be a destruction into humanity to create worse humans in the future. That's what I'm for. I can give two pennies. They don't even make pennies anymore. Um, if you choose to, I don't know, give your money away, if you have billions in the bank and you're like, I don't want to give it away, do whatever you want. That's the point of this book, is to have your opinion. It's to not be so tied into this box or not allow society to tell you what to do. That's, I feel like, the biggest part of this book because you can go both ways. If you're a billionaire, people want to tell you, give away your money. But if you're broke as hell, they're like, you got to work harder, harder, harder. Which one's right? Right? You could be broke, but you can have the most amazing life with your family, with your friends. You're working to get what you want. You have food on the table and you're able to make it to every birthday and you're able to all this stuff. Well, you can be a billionaire and have all that, but not feel fulfilled in life. And it could be destructive. I don't know. Okay? Ask yourself those questions. It's a good contemplation to go over in a more deeper, more internal way, not external. No need to go into Instagram or Facebook or TikTok to, make a decision or an assumption about this. Not a decision or assumption, sorry, an opinion. Opinions matter, but they don't necessarily mean that they're factual. So, and with that, I'll leave you to make your opinion and hope you have an amazing rest of your day. And remember, take care of yourself, take care of your mind. It's important. Take care of your body. It's important. Okay, bye.